Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits video. I promised I was going to make another one here in between my new Cryptids and Monsters video, and that I would follow a theme that seems to be pretty popular, where I just pick a random video, a random topic, and make it the so-and-so of the week for my entry here. And this one I wanted to go ahead and talk about because I came across this information today, and it's very sad. It's very tragic. After I share all of this information with you, I'm sure you'll find how kind of depressing this story is, and it has to do with a ghost that apparently still haunts to this day a place called Lake Huron, and the circumstances that came across with regards to this, what happened to this person in real life, which subsequently led to their ghost-like status. Very, very sad stuff. So a little bit of a downer with regards to this story, but keep in mind, this is stuff still that's very fascinating, very interesting to share with everybody. And also the interesting thing is that there's a whole bunch of photos of the person and then of the gravesite, even the potential lone location where all this happened, and I'm going to share it with everybody here. So what I'm talking about is the ghost of Minnie Quay. I hope I'm saying her last name right. Minnie Quay, Quay, which you'll see a picture of here. This is a real picture of her, by the way. She was a young girl that lived back in the late 1800s or so. And this had to do with her experience in her short life, dealing with a very sad circumstance that essentially caused her to end her life. So here's what happened. The QA family consisted of a father and a mother named James and Mary Ann. They settled into that area near Lake Huron, which is in Michigan, sometime in the mid 1800s, about 1850 something to be exact. And while they were there, they built a tavern that became pretty successful. So this was a location where they settled, they created a good business out of it, they became kind of like prominent members of the society there, and then on top of that they had a daughter who they named Minnie Quay, and she grew up with them there. She grew up to about the age of 14 or so, and this was where a dramatic shift happened in her life. Apparently near that lake there were a lot of boats coming in and out, businesses that were, I guess, bringing supplies or sending supplies and other type of merchant items. And one of these trips, Minnie actually came across a young sailor. Apparently this sailor would also visit the tavern that the parents had, and then that's why they met, her and the sailor. There's no known pictures though of this sailor, so for this purpose I'm just using this shot of like a mysterious sailor. This was a photo I found. These are the sailors look like in the late 1800s to give you an idea of what we're dealing with. And she fell in love with this guy, and he fell in love with her. Not even a name is known as who this guy was. All it was known was that he was someone that would occasionally, his ship would dock there in the area, and each time he came in, then he would visit the tavern and in turn visit Minnie. I think this went on for about a year or two at most. A year definitely, because this is what happened next. Naturally, with anything involving let's say a lowly sailor at the time, and then a prominent family like this, there were a lot of people that were not happy about Minnie's relationship. They did not want her to have anything to do with this sailor. They thought that she could absolutely do better. And naturally, with her being a young girl, the more that she was told no, the more that she rebelled and continued to stay with the sailor. It got to the point that at certain times people would hear Minnie's mother, Mary Ann, yell really loud in the town that she would rather see her own daughter dead than with this man. I don't know if she was saying this like right there at the tavern or somewhere in their nearby home, but it happened. People would hear it. Everyone knew about this gossip, and in a lot of cases the people there as well did not like Minnie being with this guy. I guess they saw Minnie as like part of their own. like a daughter of their own, and so they wanted her to have the best, and they wanted to make sure that she was, in their case, taken care of. And there's no way that that could have happened with this sailor. It was a different time back then, obviously. Anything involving parents, they wanted to have their daughters to have the best lifestyle possible, and that included the idea that if it has to be somebody richer or somebody that's able to take care of their daughter, otherwise they're not worth it. So in any case, there was one incident, and this was in 1876, where everything changed. Everything completely changed. One time, Minnie was expecting this guy to come back, and when she was realizing that the ship that the guy usually comes in was not coming in its normal schedule, that's when things took a tragic turn. Apparently, the ship had gone down somewhere in the lakes of Michigan, the Great Lakes of Michigan. So whatever this ship was, however it happened, it went down, and it took down that sailor that she was in love with. This was a girl at the time, remember, that she wanted to marry. This was someone that she wanted to create a family with. And actually, with her being a young girl, and this happening to her, this was a huge blow, absolutely gigantic blow. Who knows how many nights she spent just crying her eyes out. And so it seemed like, though, eventually that she got over it, because her parents, even though they didn't approve of the relationship, they realized that anything involving this, she'll just move on. She'll just, I guess, shove it aside somewhere, find someone else eventually, and then it'll be forgotten. And it certainly seemed that way, because things got to be a little bit more quiet. By the way, you're looking at here, I think this is the actual home that the Quays lived in. I don't know. This was a picture that I found that seemed like it, but it's the only one that I seem to find. The tavern that they had is apparently abandoned. It's either gone completely, demolished by now, or it was abandoned for the longest time and still is to this day, but I can't find a picture of it. But this apparently is the actual home that they lived in. It goes to show again what they have. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is the home that they have. So they had a good lifestyle. Well, cut to a couple of sometime in that year. This was in 1876, April 27th to be exact. Everything seemed normal. Her parents, I guess, were off, and they were going to do something that night, and so they allowed their daughter to stay by herself in the home with her younger brother, who they named James Jr. Again, everything seemed normal. The parents had nothing to worry about. They just simply left her as is. She probably said goodbye. But what they hadn't realized was that Minnie was still very much torn inside, and the main reason for it was because whenever the last time that she saw this sailor before he went on his soon-to-be fateful trip, she never even got a chance to say goodbye to him. So this was to her the most heartbreaking thing. If she would have known that this was the last time that she would see this guy, obviously she would have made it something where she would have said so many goodbyes and so forth, but no, in this case, she never got the chance because her parents blocked her from seeing the guy, and then lo and behold, it surely was the last time that the guy would ever come back. So she held that in, and then on April 27th, the dam burst, everything came back. For whatever reason, she was so heartbroken that this is what happened next. While the infant was sleeping, I think this was in the nighttime too, Minnie suddenly decided she wanted to do something. And so she walked straight into town. She walked past the tavern that her parents were either working in at the time or doing something. Wherever they were definitely away from the home. And then they passed by this location, which is called a Tanner House. This is a place that was still in existence back then. Obviously, I mean, then and then still in existence now. And at that time, there was a porch, and people there reported that they were sitting on the porch, and they waved to the young girl Minnie as she was passing by. I think that's why I say I think this was at night, because usually when people are sitting on a porch, it tends to be in the evening or at night as they're talking or reflecting on whatever happened in the day, and that's when they would notice something like this. So here's what happened. They saw this young girl Minnie just walking by. They waved to her. She waved to them. There was nothing in terms of anything to alarm them as to what would happen next. And lo and behold, in front of their very own eyes, they saw her walk across this particular pier. Now this pier that's there in Lake Huron, I believe people believe that this is it, and I believe it too, that this is the actual pier that she walked. But back then, of course, it was fully built. I did find this though. This is a picture you're looking at of some people on the pier. And considering the time period of the picture, which is dated sometime in the late 1800s, I believe this is the actual pier itself. Obviously, it's not a picture of Minnie on the pier, but it is of the pier itself. I believe it is in this case. I could be wrong, but I believe it is. And so what had happened was, as these people were watching, Minnie went across the pier very calmly, very quietly. All she did was she walked across the pier, and then she jumped right off it into the frigid waters of Lake Huron. Obviously, once the people saw that, they immediately got up and they tried to find her and tried to see what was happening. Nothing. She was gone. The minute she hit that water, maybe because it was too cold, or maybe she was just so intent on committing suicide, she was gone. The body was never found. There was no trace of her at all. Nothing. That's it. Which is so scary, so eerie when you think about it. I mean, here she was in a calm, collected state, calm enough to like laugh and smile to the people as she was walking across that Tanner house straight to the pier. And then nonchalantly she just walked right across it to the end and then just jumped over. Crazy, crazy stuff. That's where now the ghost stories come into play, because ever since that period, people have described something strange happening near that area. People have described some kind of laughter. They hear like something involving like a mournful sound also coming from the water. People still see like strange like apparitions. It looks like almost like a young girl calling out to them from the distance. Others have seen the apparition actually in the water, almost beckoning them, like telling them to come into the water as if it's fine altogether. Others have seen, I guess, the action itself from far away of a young girl jumping from somewhere and then landing in the water. So that's the story of the ghost of Minnie Quay. To this day, people report seeing and hearing this type of stuff near and around that location. Crazy, crazy stuff. So if anyone knows any other tales, any other interesting items tied to this, especially any footage, I tried to see if there was any photos of any kind with regards to this particular ghost story. There's none, but obviously there's all these tales of people saying that they saw something. That's what I want. Hopefully, if someone might have that information, like links or photos or anything like that, please share them, and then that way we can take a look together. But otherwise, that's the ghost of Minnie Quay. Tragic, very sad situation. It reminded me when I was reading of this of the director that just died a couple of years back, Tony Scott. He directed some of my most famous films, my favorite films like Crimson Tide. He also directed The Fan. I think was the other one. Can't remember. Name escapes me right now, but yeah, he's definitely a guy that has some notable films. But there was an incident where, towards the end of his life, for whatever reason, he decided that he would have no more of it, and so he went to some kind of not a bridge, but it's some kind of docking place, and he just the way witnesses there reported it, all he did was he just walked straight like to the edge, and he even passed, and I think he even said like hello to somebody that was there nearby. And then before anyone else knew it, he climbed himself on top of the edge and then just jumped over. And that was it. And he plummeted all the way down, of course, instantly dying when he hit the water. And it reminded me of this story when I was reading the Minnie Quay and the ghost story tied to it. It reminded me of what Tony Scott did. It makes you wonder how people get to a certain point in their life where they would just so nonchalantly decide to do something like that. Crazy stuff. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.